Primordial water, cosmic web of consciousness. So yeah, let's get started. And I just really quickly, I've been talking about Abdel Hakim Awyan. I just wanted to give you a picture to see, this is who it was. He was in Carmen Bolter's Pyramid Code, and Stephen Mailer and Hakim, Stephen wrote them, but they kind of did it together. They gathered the information, wrote 2 books, Land of Osiris and From Light into Darkness. So, if you're interested in learning more about Hakim, he was amazing. But I don't want to waste a lot of time on that, so you can ask me questions about him. But I have so much to share tonight that I really do want to get started. And I'm going to start off with a little note about Veda. She really wanted to be here. But we are going to work together in November, and I'm so excited about that. She's going to be coming to Egypt. And at any rate, I did want to include this. In her book, The Secret Intelligence of Water, she mentions that water is not just a resource, it is source. And this is what the ancients say worldwide. Without it, there's no life. In cross-cultural cosmologies, life originates as watery waveform, called Maya in India. It's the illusion of form. The ancients believed that there is an underlying intelligence of pure light or energy responsible for creation and the eternal spiraling patterns of nature. This intelligence creates reality from its own body of light, known to them as the primeval or primordial waters. This can be envisioned as a breath from the heart of consciousness, projecting an awareness of movement, time, and space as waves upon an ocean, creating our illusion of physical form or matter. They understood and defined cosmic consciousness as threads of intelligent primordial light, spun on a spiraling wheel of time into sacred geometric webs of perceived form, creating space, united by water, reflecting its many manifestations. I love this image. The divine circle, which contains the first cause, incomprehensible to human reason. It's the Spirit of God moving over the waters. Man, formed in the image of God, is placed at the center of all circles. It's all about you, the observer. Circle of intelligences, circle of the senses, circle of thoughts, circle of understanding. The center in which all circles meet is the divine light. As a tapestry of liquid light birthed from love, the ancients knew we are multidimensional, we are immortal, and we cannot die. We eternally transform within the ebb and flow of cyclical patterns within this web of form and formless, intelligent water. Knowing that we would forget, they embedded these mysterious truths about our origins and legacy within their symbolism, mythologies, dogma, ritual, structures, and language. I'm going to talk about all these things as we go. The beginning of my lectures, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this, but I like to talk about, the Egyptian pantheon of gods and goddesses were not thought of as the way we think of a god or a goddess today. They were known as the forces of nature. Our word nature is derived from the ancient Egyptian glyphs for the consonants NTR. The Greeks and Romans pronounced this as nature. That's where we get our word nature, of course. Other words that are derived from neter are eternal, nurture, natal, and natural. And I use these images because you're looking at these, how they express as, aspects of nature. And this one image on the far left, you're seeing, it's actually Ramses III, right? And it's sort of like a coronation scene. But what's fascinating is you have Horus and Set. They're 2 sides of the same coin. And you have Horus, and he's got his hand on the right brain. I say this could be Ramses III or the initiate. It could be you. And Set has his hand on the left brain. And you're actually looking at 2 entities that represent sunrise, the horizon, right? Sunset. Set is spirit set into form, the container, the body. He becomes chaos. Our spirits are locked in form, and we want out, right? We want freedom. And that's the chaos that Set is. He's not the devil. Devil is lived, spelled backwards, right? The Neteru are angles or angels of light that breathe out from our center to form the oceans of light. Each has a unique frequency, yet is an integral aspect of the divine source of light. Their frequencies, their colors, this is us. We all have a unique frequency. We all have a unique, direction, musical note, name. We have a name. The minute we fall into form, we are all angels that fell into form. Look at this beautiful image from Rosslyn Chapel, and it's the upside down angel falling into containment, the containment of the cord. There are images all over the world of statues of angels falling into form. We are all angels of light that fell from divine source. It gets better. The ancient Egyptians understood that everything begins and ends over and over again in eternal cycles emanating from and returning to the primordial waters of Nu. None. Nothing. No thing. No cess. It's everything, as Dr. Karim said, and nothing all at once. It's pure consciousness. In the beginning, primordial waters are silent, colorless, inert, inactive, as consciousness imagining, the primordial source of all energy that permeates the universe and is responsible for the emergence of matter. Inspired by its imaginings, Nu exhaled into individuated aspects of itself as archetypal forces of nature, Neteru, possessing immortal spirits. Through their evolution, they become co-creators of their own holographic universes, which in turn give birth to fractally vibrating universes of their own, and so on. Through magnetic attraction, this original heart of consciousness inhales or evolves back into oneness, at one-ment, atonement. In Egypt, we'd say Aten-ment. Aten was the highest stage of consciousness. Think of Akhenaten. For another moment of silence, and then it all begins again. We are all co-creators. We are all Neteru. We are all the gods that walk the earth. One creation myth speaks of the Great Mother as Tefnut. We all met Tefnut today. Stephen Mailer loves to tell a story about Hakim in telling us that when Nut wanted to manifest on earth in physical form, she spit. Spittle, moisture, or saliva was the first breath. Water, conscious water. Tefnut translates as the spit of Nut, born in the spitting image of our Creator. So many of our phrases come from ancient Egypt. Earthly waters are a reflection of the heavens. These wonderful images, the one in the center comes from Glastonbury, the Glastonbury well. It's Tefnut, and she's spitting out the iron-rich waters that comes from under the Tor. When I go there, I get my water bottle out, and I can't wait. It's life force. It's the fertility of the land. It's the currency. Heaven and earth separate to open a space for the dance of life. And here we see a wonderful image of Nut. She's forming a container with Geb, the earth. And Geb, if you notice, his body is a sine wave pattern. Shu has his arms in the Ka position. Ka means animating life force. It's the chi. It's the vibe. It's what makes you vibrant. If you're vibrant, you're full of Ka. And when you're you're kind of lacking that animating life force. Tefnut is the watery waveform in the space in between. That's the divine feminine. That's the sea of fertility. Alice Bailey tells us it forms one unbroken field of activity in constant, ceaseless motion, an eternal medium for the exchange and transmission of energies. Another wonderful image of this, creating a home for the spirit or soul to dwell. At Esna, a translation of Esna, it describes Shu as basically, he raised up the sky as a chapel, a container for his Ba. The Ba is the spirit, the soul. See, it's these patterns reflect the fractal patterns. That's us. This is us. Notice how Geb is green? Earth. Tefnut is moisture, water, the lifeblood of the mother of the earth, of our own bodies. She is the Ka of Ra, the life force of the sun, the land, and its people. Great floods symbolized purification through inundation as rebirth and resurrection. When they talk about Osiris and he's been chopped up, and they put little pieces of him in all the different nomes and the different temple sites, say, oh, his head is buried at Abydos and a different body part is buried somewhere else. But then when Isis mourns for her lover, her tears are the flood that connects, magically connects all the individuated aspects of Osiris. That's the life force returning to the land and the temples, rejuvenating the land and the temples. The Simatui illustrates life as a dance of constant retreats and expansion with moments of silence. And here we see on the far right, this is an ancient, it's one of the most ancient symbols in Egypt. And you're actually looking at the papyrus and lotus plants on either side forming a knot. And they're the lungs. And the trachea, it's the windpipe. And you see the voice box on the top. This is all about resonance and ebb and flow. The ebb and flow of life force is so much more. You're breathing out. Take a big breath out. You're breathing out into separation consciousness. And then hold. There's a moment of silence. And then you breathe back home to center, the heart. It's a breath in and out. It's an ebb and flow. Just like all the rivers of the world, the seas controlled by the moon. It's all waveform. We're watery waveform. Conscious watery waveform. I love this, Wajwer. Wajwer was the great green. He was known as the pregnant netter. He's androgynous. Representing the fertility of the earthly waters contained by Nut, the great green, as I said, is androgynous and contains the unlimited potentials of the masculine seed and the spark of life force within the feminine womb. And I have the image of the Waj. You can see it next to the hieroglyphs. The Waj is also a pendulum. The waters as liquid light surround us and go through us. We are the waters, we are the light. Everything on their idea of earth was we are the earthly waters. With the illusion of form, we think we're form, but we're all watery waveform. We're the body electric, and we mirror the heavens above. So there's the earthly waters and the heavenly waters, the primordial waters. There's the primordial water. In the language of liquid light, and how many times have you heard, that language forms as, it's the language of light. And that's how the ancients understood it. Nun represents the waters of the heavens, or the vastness of the abyss of space containing the many waters, represented by the three pots, Nu, Nu, and Nu, and specifically the waters of Pet, pot, PT, containment. Pet represents the heavens or the skies that surround us. Here's Nut, and she wears the Nu pot. That was her crown. And she illustrates this understanding of the sky or heaven as being a container of these cosmic waters in the form of a water pot. Language develops from the patterns and tones that form this primordial energy in motion. In English, we gain the words potent, potion, potter, and potential from the phrase Nu pot as expressions and associations with Nut. The language of light emerges with the first breath. It's the language of the Suf, the wisdom of the heart. Hakim even said that the hieroglyphs were the Sufi language, the wisdom, Sophia, from the heart. And I've talked to a few people along the journey and the conference about these tones as they're formed, as they fall into form in a way. The same tones, ka, pa, min, they are represented in all the languages across all cultures all over the world. And the basic tones always represent the same thing. And I always like to point out when, the baby's first words, think about how we form words with our mouth. And what are the first words a baby says? Mama, papa, baba. Same movements, very unique. There is such a relationship with tone and form and what these tones mean. Fascinating, fascinating study. Hathor. Here's a beautiful image of Hathor. Look at her hair. Hathor's hair is the Milky Way. It's the Omega. She gives birth to the Alpha. Her name on the far right, it's Hathor. The square is the place. And inside you see Horus. That's the whore. The whore is the seed. She is the place or womb of the whore, the seed. Her hair is also the new jar, the container of the primordial waters. The Omega that releases the seed of life, the Alpha, and the first letter of our alphabet. The Greeks just took this from Egypt. The new pot, or newt, was the Milky Way. And I love this quote from Rumi, "We are the sweet cold water and the jar that pours." Can't make this stuff up. I found these great images from Mesopotamia, and we're looking at 3,800 years ago, and what are these figures holding but new pots? You see the fish coming out in some of them? We are the fish. We are the mermen and the mermaids that were swimming in the water in right brain consciousness. The whole way of looking at the world, different way of looking at the world. Hathor was sacred sound as the creative force of the universe. Waveform. As above, so below, as without, so within, all life exists as patterns of energy and motion. All are reflections of each other. On the far right, we see precession of the equinoxes. In the center, we see the Temple of Man. Image came from Swaller to Lubitz, but we're looking at, the same idea, patterned after man, patterned after the heavens. It's just an incredible dynamic. And these waveforms and frequencies are consciously showing us the path to return home. Know the patterns, know yourself. The divine entities, the Ogdoad, were without form, but not without power. Dr. Karim, on his lecture the first night, was talking about these eight primordial netters that are responsible for the emergence of form. And I want to point out they're holding, my loop got moved a bit, but they're holding the mare. It's the plow I was talking about earlier, and that plow is used as a tool to open irrigation ditches for water to flow. And we see these wonderful feminine netters, and they're literally dumping their new jars to form our perception of reality. It's beautiful. The sunrise over the horizon of the mound of creation as Neteru pour the primeval waters of consciousness around it. This comes from the Book of the Dead. Life is a journey through these waters of perception. I like to say that merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. In Australia, they call it the dream world. It's all an illusion. It's a perception. And we're in a right brain versus left brain versus unity consciousness. We migrate back and forth. Unity consciousness is the moment of silence, gnosis. As above, so below, everything without reflects everything within. The ancients knew we are mirrors of the divine. Quantum physicists are uncovering evidence today that illustrates that plasmas represent a fourth domain of life that is conscious and interacting with us. These two waters embody the wisdom of the Suf, or Sophia. This is the papyrus of Ani, and it's showing us, you see the two waters. Look at the different images of the water, and here you have the image of Wajwer, and it's illustrating, again, water is conscious. Consciousness imagining and consciousness creating. The ancients believed that water possessed a mysterious power or potency that manifested of and by itself in a patterned format that offers conscious awareness of life. Still waters run deep. the wisdom of the heart. Nurturing water creates, protects, heals, and sustains. And a tsunami of emotion, energy and motion can destroy, like Kali and Sekhmet. But they're literally destroying in order to open a space for healing. Sophia embodies all of these powerful aspects of the sacred feminine. Azgat Nefer. Oh my goodness. Azgat Nefer. Hakim used to talk about this all the time, the harmony of water. The new pot was the symbol of the divine feminine womb as the vessel which receives the seed. Nu was the symbol for the celestial waters as the Neter Nu, and his female counterpart, Nut. The T represents containment. Azgat was pure primordial energy from this sacred womb. Azgat represented the origin of all forms of water: rivers, lakes, seas, oceans, saliva, lava, blood, sweat, and tears, amniotic fluid, lymph, plasma, light, currency both subtle and electromagnetic. Azgat Nefer represented the innate balance of its ebb and flow as the game board for our existence. Watery waveform is life force. Again, ebb and flow was portrayed, and Jocelyn did a wonderful job of talking about the serpent, this primordial force of nature. And here, it's the powerful serpent Apep, the Greek said Apophis, who represents our vital connection to the womb of primordial waters that bridges two different worlds. He says, I am the outflow of the primeval flood, the one who emerges from the waters. I am the giver of life energy, the serpent of many coils. This is from the pyramid text. And from translated writings at Esna, she, Ninth, the great mother of all that exists, removed the umbilical cord from her son and she put it in the noon waters. Fascinating. This is so interesting. This is life force. It's reminiscent of Thor and the Midgard serpent of Norse mythology. On a deeper level, they represent the demiurge, the total unity between everything we differentiate, both positive and negative, day and night, life and death. Here we see Apep or Apophis as he moves in the mystical celestial ocean between Isis and Nebhet. Cycles within cycles of patterned energy and motion, they represent again this ebb and flow of the waves of perception. These patterns are fractally flowing within everything in the seen and the unseen worlds. Know the patterns, know yourself. The Neter Ninth, also spelled Nit, net, neat, was the net or womb created by these threads of liquid light. She represented the fabric of our reality. Her name, this from Plutarch, her name also may be interpreted as meaning water. In time, this meaning led to her being considered as the personification of the primordial waters of creation. She is identified as a great mother goddess in this role as creator. And she gets to say, I am all that has been, that is, and ever will be. No mortal has yet been able to lift the veil that covers me. Isis says this too, and many of the feminine netters. The veil, the magnetic field that surrounds us, look at her crown. Everyone is in a state of, nobody knows for sure what that crown is. Some think it's weaving tools, but if you look at it, it's the basic energy of the Taurus field. As the sacred mother, she weaves the threads of light into form in cross-cultural creation stories, illustrating a universal understanding that light is fluid intelligence and consciously aware. Ninth's web embodies universal consciousness. And here we see Arachne, and the Greek goddess, who is also the weaver. And I will show more in even my next lecture. Her crown represents the Taurus field, the tree of life, the womb of transforming consciousness, exhaling and inhaling. Creation is sound causing separation. Spinning the web of time and space, creation is ultimately motion, and therefore separation from source as a breath of life force, and it spirals, creating our illusion of form and frequency in the tones that form our alphabets. It's serpent symbolism. The hieroglyph for water is waveform, and it represents the phonetic consonant N, which is used to begin our titles for night and so many others. T is containment, and I'm pointing to the hieroglyph that represents T. The sine wave, sin wave, the knowledge of good and evil. It's also the path of the sun on the ecliptic. It was the breath of the sun experienced in cycles. This is Ra on his bark, and you have Mehen, the serpent, surrounding him. He is contained within the cycles. The circle of light, or path of the sun on the ecliptic, that separates our day and night cycles. The bark of Ra traverses celestial waters of heaven in a cyclical pattern. The dawning of a new cycle begins with the spin of the wheel of time. That's the title of my second lecture. And I found this image in the center, and I love it showing, this is the release. Aquarius is the water bearer who releases the spirit from its container. And here you see the waters being released, and it's going into the constellation of Crater in Leo. I call this the Golden Gate. It's the wheel of time. We'll talk about this again. Cross-cultural symbolism, here we go again. Mesoamerican goddess Chakshel with weaving tools in her hair, pouring the sacred waters of the heavens from the new pot. It's wild. Here we have Ixchel. She was depicted as an old woman with an assistant sky serpent who carried all the waters of heaven in its belly. It's the Ouroboros. I think it's a little bit of what did you call that? The
vision serpent.
That's yeah. It's beautiful. Ixchel, in her role as a fertility goddess, she ensures fertility by overturning her sacred womb jar so that the waters would flow. In this guise, she is often known as Lady Rainbow, sending rain to the crops. Again, the ebb and flow, it can come with annual floods, or it can come with seasonal rains to cause the floods. But it's all coming from this, it's this ebb and flow of water. When we were in India, Susan and I were in India, we visited a temple where every 60 years they had a flooding rain, and the whole temple was built to basically depict this flow. I mean, it was all set up with all these wonderful, it was incredible, but it was a celebration of this return of the water in 60 years. Maybe we're about to celebrate the return of the waters now in our great year cycle. The 7 foundational colors, tones, and or qualities of frequency. Basically, we're looking at, here's beautiful white light, and it splits off into our colors of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and this is, it's also so similar to our chakras. And, here we have the 7 Hathors, 7 Hathors. This is so important. They're the 7 sages. They're the 7 stars of the Big Dipper, and so much more. And we're looking at this ebb and flow. It's light falling into form and rising into spirit. But we also fall into winter and spring into summer. Patterns, know the patterns, know yourself. Happy. Happy is Aquarius. Here we see him, he's dumping the containers of water. And in Philae, there's a wonderful image of him in a cave, and he's dumping the waters to initiate the floods. He is Aquarius. The floods in Egypt did not happen in February, just saying. He is the fertility of the rivers of water. He represented Aquarius in ancient Egypt. The word Aquarius means water bearer, and with the word aqua representing water and the word rias representing the word for river, it's the root word for river. And based off of this most simplistic interpretation alone, we can view this dawning of the age of Aquarius as an age of bringing rivers of water. Here we have, I found this wonderful image, and it's so cool because there's the Bennu bird, and the Bennu bird represents, a new cycle after, he's rising, he's like the phoenix rising out of his ashes to begin this new cycle of consciousness. And there's Aquarius sitting in his power on the throne. And behind this, on the far right, you see the harvesting. This is the harvest time. And this is, the harvest is we use a sickle, right? To pull in the harvest. And the sickle bearer is Saturn, right? That rules Aquarius. It's also fascinating. He initiates the flood to ensure the flowering, the flow, the flowering of new life and rich harvests. Here's the Dendera zodiac. This is the original that's in the Louvre. It's the potter's wheel. And Ptah is the divine potter. Ptah, see him, he's basically wrapped in his own wings, and you see the blue crown? That's the new pot of the primordial waters. Ptah is the thing that pops from out of the blue. Another phrase we use all the time. Primordial waters as the mound. He is wrapped in his own wings as all matter exists in a perception of containment. And then there is zodiac. This is the waters of heaven, and as the wheel begins to spin, liquid light falls into form. We are wrapped in our own wings, the womb of watery waveform in this three-dimensional perception. We're mummified, embalmed in these patterns of energy and motion. On the far left, you see an image I took at the British Museum, and it's Osiris. He's the green man wrapped in his own wings. There's a priestess there, but you also see images of the gods wrapped in their own wings. We're all trying to earn our wings, right? In the beginning, original energy is like still water. This comes from Schwaller Lubitz, by the way. So think about the image while I read this quote. Original energy is like still water, which under impulsion manifests itself in waves. And these, growing as they go, carry the energy from center to circumference. And this is a picture of Atlantis. And this is how it's described from the Edfu building texts. Waveform, just going out, creating these waves. Are they talking about Atlantis as creation? Something so totally different. Plato got his story of Atlantis from the temples of Egypt. As the mound emerges, rings of water begin to form. This is again paraphrased from the Edfu building texts. It speaks to our perception of time creating space and dimensionality. And here I want to show you, this is such a cool thing, and I love to share this. This is the center of the Dendera zodiac, and we see Taret, or Ipit. She's the big hippo that Jocelyn talked about. And you see there's a jackal, and he's riding our plow, right? Our plow, it's the Big Dipper, but it's also the tool that opens the path for the waters to flow. It gets better. It's the mare. The mare was this tool, as I've said even today, to open these paths for water to flow. There you see Anubis, and he's riding the mare. Hippos were fiercely protective mothers and populated the Nile River in ancient times. Taret, or Ipit, illustrated as a hippopotamus or lion, was revered in ancient Egypt as a pregnant mother and protector of pregnant women and children. You see the wonderful image, Jocelyn showed this too, from the Seti I tomb, and it has the crocodile, and the crocodile is Draco on her back, showing her relationship to the circumpolar stars. She also has her hands in the far left on the mooring posts. This is the ecliptic pole and the pole that we talk about as our North Pole. She is all about this circumpolar spin. She is seeding our world with a plow called love. The mare translates as love in ancient Egypt. Think about that. A plow means love because it opens a path for the flowing waters that nurture us, the life force, and it seeds the earth. It's the divine feminine energy. With Draco often shown as a crocodile on her back, she was associated with the circumpolar stars and the Big Dipper. Her hand rests on the mooring post from which our perception of time and space emerges with the spinning of Earth's axis, which points to the significant place in the sky. She gives birth to our current perception of reality, portrayed so beautifully at the center of the Dendera zodiac, or Potter's wheel. Creation spirals out from her belly with Anubis as the path opener, riding the hieroglyph for the mare, the plow, who embalms us in its patterns of currency. He is the alpha dog, spinning out the tones that become our alphabet, foundation for written and oral language. It's telling us that we are born from love. We hear this all the time, our source is love, and the ancient Egyptians placed this on their ceiling. It's fantastic. The mare is love. Mary meant beloved. I like to play around with Mary Magdalene. They're talking about lines of fertility, lines of currency. This Mary, the beloved, becomes this term Mary. The ancient tribes called their wisdom keepers, which were women, Marys. They were the Marys. And then we have the Marys that we talk about in dogma. Ta Mary was the beloved land. It's an ancient Egyptian term that refers to Egypt itself. So the alpha emerges, riding the plow, the Big Dipper, Anubis, the path opener for the current, creating a map of time and space as a calendar. And you can see how this plow becomes our A, the Phoenician Aleph, the Greek Alpha, the Roman A. And we use the term alpha dog all the time. Like I said, I can't make this stuff up. In the beginning was the Word. These stars, as the seven tones, are said to be the seven sages, shaman, or Hathors, who utter seven tones or magic words to bring the world into being. This tool was used by the Neteru Sachet. Wherever she was responsible for being there before they built any temple. She was responsible for the stretching of the cord ceremony to lay the foundation. And she used a tool that was aligning with the Big Dipper. Every temple, every structure was aligned in some way with the Big Dipper. In India, they're known as the seven sages, the wisdom holders. But I mentioned the word embalming, and Anubis was known as Amp or Ampu, and the word Amp means to wrap around, connected with Anubis's role as the sacred embalmer. Zep means time. Tepi means first. Together they are the first time or golden age of alchemy, when the Neteru moved through the void and created the grids of our reality. From the time before time to create time and space. I point out that Anubis on the far right is riding the two serpents of Wadjet and Nekbet. And we'll explain more about that later. Here he is the embalmer. He was known as the embalmer. Here's Sachet, who I was just talking about. She is sacred geometry, sacred geometric patterns of energy and motion. She is the grand architect and astronomer who provides the blueprint for the proportions of patterned energy and motion on Earth as a mirror of the stellar, solar, and lunar movements in the heavens above. She wears the leopard skin because she feels the currents and knows how to navigate and harness them to create conscious living forms and structures. We are all Sachet in our highest state of conscious awareness. Hakim used to say there was a time when we were all Sesh. We were all Sachet, but we fell into form and we forgot how powerful we really were. Heka, I was talking about him today, the master of currency. It meant to employ the Ka, the earthly waters, as the animating life force. He creates a portal by crossing the two lines of currency, the serpents. He was that ability to feel, navigate, and harness the Neteru, our forces of nature. The ancients tell us that we too can create heka or magic through the mastery of currency. And here's a wonderful image in the Ramses 5 and 6 tomb of we too can cross the serpents to create portals. We just forgot how. The ancients, and of course, Dr. Karim speaks about this a lot, the ancients were obsessed with restoring mat, balance, harmonic resonance, transmuting polarity and achieving harmonic resonance. And I love these images because, you know, in the center image, you're looking at the top of the head of a pharaoh, and of course the end would have been a cobra coming out, Wadjet. This is your third eye, this is your pineal, this is the opening. And if you notice, the serpent pattern's doing the sine wave pattern, connecting the two hemispheres of your brain, unified consciousness. There's so many images like this, and unfortunate, so many statues are so tall that you can't see that pattern going across the top. But I've caught several images of it. What's fascinating too is on the far right, I took that picture at a museum near Göbekli Tepe, and that's the sine wave serpent going up the center of his head. And of course, I think even Durea and Lila pointed this out, the difference between the hemispheres of the brain. Right brain is heart-based, creative, unity consciousness, matriarchal, multidimensional perception. And left brain is mind-based, analytical, separation, patriarchal, linear perception. There's a whole different way of understanding the world. You know, when people say aliens walk the earth, I say, oh yeah. But we were the aliens that walked the earth because how would we describe someone who felt their connection to everything that exists in multi-dimensions? You know, think about that. We knew all our different names, who we were, how we expressed. And now, you know, somebody's trying to tell me I'm just Patricia. I'm so much more than Patricia. And you are all so much more than the body you think is you. This is a quote from Dr. Karim, life force is everywhere. We just need to remember how to access it. Purification is the process of returning to the primordial. And this, it's hard to see this, but I caught this image, I think it was at Edfu, and you're looking at the master of water, right? You can rely on the one who knows water. This is what it actually represents. Know the water, know the patterns, know yourself. Everything will eventually merge back into the primeval waters of potentiality. And I wanted to point out that, you know, that the Heb said the rituals of the kings and the priests emulate these patterns I've been talking about. And so the rituals enacted by the king were designed to emulate the patterns of nature, to make them gods on earth. You know, they ran the labyrinths. They went through, you know, all these different oils, purification by all these oils. Do you realize the royalty today still do these things? Some of the rituals they do at their coronation are done in secret, but they're emulating the ancient Egyptian rituals. And, you know, the Hebset was basically celebrated after 30 years of rulership. When the rulership becomes old and tired and falls into separation consciousness, the king must restore balance and reunite Upper and Lower Egypt. This is what they're talking about, the two hemispheres of the brain, not Upper and Lower Egypt. It's all about us coming back into balance to prove he has the right to rule. Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn king. He's going to initiate a new cycle of rulership. When they could unite the two lands, they can be enthroned as Horus kings, sitting in their power. And this is why all over the world, everybody talks about the pharaohs, they thought they were gods. No, they knew they were gods, but the whole idea is this idea gets expressed today that even we, in so many different religions all over the world, we view our source, our God, sitting on a throne. And it all goes back to Egypt. Here we see Horus as Ihi at Dendera. He's sitting on his throne, and he's calming cosmic chaos. He's killing the beast, Set, with the Hathor sistrum, which is a tool for rhythm. And the rhythm, if it's calming, restores Mat, or harmonic resonance. And he's sitting on top the image of the Sima Tawi, the ebb and flow of life. And those are images of Hapi on either side. Again, this is a symbol that represents reuniting Upper and Lower Egypt, the two hemispheres of the brain, and it represents breath. I call it the great yogic breath because it's a practice that is done in India for this very purpose. So when we are masters of the Neteru, we are able to create megalithic wonders. And yes, that's me lifting that lid, the Serapeum. You too can get a photo like that tomorrow. And that's Jocelyn at the Osirian. You know, these are megalithic monuments that we would struggle with and to place them where they're in. And, you know, we could talk for hours, but we were once the Neteru, and we were able to do this. They were able to create statuary and iconography that embody archetypal qualities, emit subtle energy, and interact with us. You know, when you're in right brain consciousness, you have the ability to you feel all the currents, you feel them. And you're able to take that knowing, that energy, and not use your mind. You're not using your mind. You're taking it and you're creating perfection. And you're embodying it with an archetypal energy. This is Sekhmet. You know, you're stepping into your power. When you're looking into Sekhmet, she's encouraging you to find your voice. You know, open your heart. Show your hearts. We've been told to hide our hearts. Sekhmet is like, show your heart to the world. That's how we reunite and become one again. They were able to make bioorganic pyramids and temples that are alive and interact with our physical, mental, and emotional bodies. We all felt a little bit of that today, didn't we? With the ability to heal the body, mind, and spirit, and restore peace and unity of the two waters within and without. It's Ma'at. Sites were chosen purposefully for their energetic blueprint that helped to create their living structures. You can see the aquifers underneath the pyramids. It's the water table under there. We were underneath it today, feeling that ionic energy emerging. They're still alive. Would have been much more alive when the high dam wasn't there. We would have had much more water, but there's still water there. When I used to sit on the balcony, I would watch them come and they'd pump water out so they could go down into the chambers, but the water comes right back again. Yeah, there's a water table there. Temples and pyramids were breathing in sync with the ebb and flow of the Nile. They're living structures. All is connected in a great universal harmony where each archetypal aspect has its place and function. Each and every one of us has our purpose, and we know it from the heart. So Wajwur, the great green, he symbolizes the raw potential of existence. We are all containers of Wajwur, the sacred waters of Nut, and we forgot how powerful we are and are now being challenged to return to the primordial, our pure state of being. Again, from Dr. Ibrahim Karim, there is a superhuman inside us waiting to emerge. You feel it. I think we're feeling it more and more these days. There's something that's spurring us on. You know, we know change is coming, and I think we all feel we have a part to play in that. And here is the wonderful light body, the Ak. It's the combination of the Ba and the Ka. Who knew? No, sorry. Ancient Egyptians used the likeness of the northern bald ibis for their conception of the Ak, meaning both the shining and effective one. It was the sacred unification of the Ba, the part of the soul that could travel between the worlds, and the Ka, the animating life force that enabled the ascension of one's light body. When one's underworld journey, that's us, into the physical dimension successfully culminated with the justification and acceptance into the afterlife, they were transformed into an Ak and became a mighty and influential entity with supernatural powers. I say what we would call supernatural powers that they would have thought was completely natural. But here you see the Ak with the symbol of the Aten, which represented our highest stage or age of consciousness. And consisting of pure energy, the Ak was a highly intelligent living entity or spirit in the form of liquid light. And I do believe that our next step is to stop falling into form. I think we've hit rock bottom. We're pointing to Polaris. We're ready for the reversal. There's a resurrection scene of Osiris in many of the temples, and Horus, Osiris is flat on his back and dead, right? And you see Horus in some of the depictions, and he's standing there and he's saying, "Turn over, Osiris, and rise." And then you see a depiction of Osiris on his stomach, and he rises. See, we have to turn over. We have to change our perspective, and everything changes. I said the portal of Aquarius and Leo, we're watching Aquarius begin to rise on the horizon in the northern hemisphere. But if you're in the southern hemisphere, Leo's starting to rise on the horizon. Just putting out some little tidbits. What happens if we have a pole reversal? And I'm not talking the earth turns over, I'm talking the magnetic poles. It's going to change our perception of reality. And we might begin to think the sun's rising in the west instead of the east. Like Dr. Karim said, Herodotus said the priest told him at least actually 4 times the sun rose in the east and rose in the west. But how many cycles were they keeping track of? It's a pattern. It's our pattern. Do you have to wait 26,000 years? You can do it all in one great yogic breath, if we remember how. Have we arrived at the winter solstice of our great year, at the precipice of a global awakening? What if we are all like beings showing up right now for the highest vibrational potential? This is me on the winter solstice at Karnak on December 22nd, 2023. And this is, again, all over the world, temples are aligned to this spectacular moment in time when the sun rises, emerges out of the darkness into light. And when I was there, I imagined that I was there with the people that understood the power, what this actually meant. And it changes. I can't tell you how spectacular it is to be there. We were so excited we went again this year. So it's kind of addictive once you've done it. But winter solstice is a jubilee of light and rebirth that celebrates the embodiment of the divine spark of life. And here, that we were taking it from, I took that picture from the other outside of the Holy of Holies. And then I ran into the Holy of Holies to show how this sunrise hits the altar. The altar where the altering of consciousness occurs. And here they would have placed a bark, and the bark would have had a golden image of a neter. I'm showing you an image of Horus, but this was done at all the temples. The barks would be laid out to have those first rays of the morning of the solstice as it awakens the force of nature that neter represents. Let heaven and nature sing. This is what the song is all about. Yakini, Yakini. This was given to us by Abdel Hakim Awyan, and it means, may I be protected by the power of my positive essence. And it's really saying, don't be afraid. When you say Yakini, Yakini, you believe in what you speak. Step into your power. It's the wisdom of the heart. Thank you. Any questions? I saw this on the ceiling at Dendera probably about 10 years ago. You know, when you walk into Dendera, there's a gate, and if you look up as you're walking like into the first like big courtyard before you get to the temple, and you look up, you see underneath this gate, you see the only place in Egypt that has the underbelly of the winged scarab, any scarab. You look up and you see the underbelly of the scarab. And you know, I didn't tell you all, I gave you all scarabs at the beginning of the conference, and it is a symbol of new beginnings and transformation. And that's what these events are all about. Right? And the winged scarab actually means the new dawn. This is the moment we reverse and start moving into the right brain again. Depicted as the wing, we emerge, we're able to spread our wings, we see the sun. I'll talk more about this in my next lecture, but it's an incredible moment. But Hakim said the underbelly of the scarab meant you are entering a place that holds all the answers to the mysteries and secrets of the universe. I had to hear that once, and I knew that this was going to be the place I was going to go study. And I've spent so many hours there. Alan and I have gone in like a couple days in a row, and we spend the whole day. And you know, the guides and the drivers are always like, "What? People don't do this." But with Dendera, I mean, it's just incredible, and it tells the story. And when I saw the ceiling and what it was saying, and some of the things Jocelyn expressed in her lecture, it includes some of these scenes, and it actually shows that this is exactly what happens. And when I take people on tours and I show them the ceiling, I make them walk the figure 8 pattern, and it tells you when everything reverses and flips. You could walk it, it's beautiful, and it can't be any other way. So, I knew then it was going to be about 10 to 40 years. It's about 10 years later, and it's getting closer. And if you watch what's happening, you know, in the last 160 years, we have lost 30% of our magnetic field. The magnetic field is the wings of Isis and Nebhet. You see beautiful, I'll show you in the next lecture. They have their wings around Osiris. He's the land, remember, he's the axis of the earth. He's us. We all have Taurus fields, right? Electromagnetic fields. They are the wings, but they're the veil, right? Of forgetfulness that we fell into. The one that Anubis embalms us in. And it's weakening exponentially, 30% of what it was 160 years ago. And this process sped up exponentially in the year 2000. And as that happens, consider, okay, they are protecting Osiris if you believe you are your body. But if we remember we're not our body, see, the problem is when I say, yes, this is all going to happen, the magnetic field's going to fall, and we'll have a moment of silence. And then, based on our innate duality, eventually, yeah, we imagine the world into being again. Maybe we spin the opposite direction, or have the perception that we're spinning the opposite direction if the poles flip. See what I'm saying? It's a journey of perception. It's fascinating. Egyptians tell us south is up. The river flows, is the only major river in the world that flows from the south to the north, right? And like I said, if we were looking down right now, we look up, everybody looks up to the circumpolar stars in the northern hemisphere to tell us what time it is. Where are we? Where is Horus? What happens if we look down? What's in the southern hemisphere? Well, Leo's about to rise on the horizon. How do you turn lead into gold? Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, who rules lead. Leo is ruled by the sun, who rules gold. Maybe the alchemical question is something we never even thought of. Just saying. I've done a lot of work with this. I have folders and folders and folders of information from cultures all over the world that speak about this dynamic. It's been there for everyone. Pachacudi, and anybody who's gone to Machu Picchu sees him. He's the statue at the bottom before you go up to Machu Picchu. He represents the reversal of perception. And he's not the only one. So I'll stop there. We're close. We're really close. Thank you.